Hey everyone, it's Braulio Rosa with the Broward Bar Buzz, and I'm pretty excited today because the topic I think is going to be hot. Before we get into the topic, let me introduce you to Josh Lida. He is a art and business attorney. He's my friend. He's with the Twig Trade and Tribunal law firm. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of gave a little bit about the topic. So we're going to be discussing NFTs and specifically ZooCoin, which is Logan Paul's project. And there's been this whole beef going on YouTube with Coffeezilla and Logan Paul. And so we wanted to look at it from a legal perspective to see what's what as best as we can tell. And so that's why I've invited Josh. All right, Josh, so why don't you give us a breakdown kind of what this project is about?
Yeah, so basically, after we discussed this podcast, I watched the Coffeezilla videos. He essentially did like a investigative breakdown of what happened. So Logan Paul announced a project back in August, around September, called CryptoZoo, which he billed as essentially a play-to-earn game. Quick side note, there are projects in the NFT world that are what's called play to earn. The NFTs are assets or in-game items, and you play the game and you earn tokens that have monetary value. And we have other examples that are still up and running, and that's what this is sort of what was billed as supposed to be. A lot of hype, but in addition to the NFT game, they also did a token drop, and that's the ZooCoin you had mentioned. So now there's a cryptocurrency element to it as well. So obviously he's a big media personality, hyped it up, sold out the eggs, which were these items that were going to hatch and then be like the foundation of the game. And along the lines had started working with some guys, one named Eddie Ibanez, who appears to have lied about a lot of his credentials, his manager, Jeff Levin, and this guy named the Crypto King, who, yeah, it's a great name. And for people listening to this, like, we will hear silly names and new ways that people communicate just because of the nature of this industry. But the Crypto King was involved as well. And the project never delivered. The game doesn't work. The eggs don't hatch. The coins are worthless. They can't really do anything with the NFTs. So people are out a lot of money. Coffeezilla went down like this big long rabbit hole and found that there's a lot of troubling items. First of all, there's a lot of communications he got that seemed to be amongst the founders, those four guys I mentioned before, talking about price of the coin and when they're going to sell and when they're not going to sell and how much they can affect the market. Then, if I remember, there was an email exchange somewhere along the lines of, don't affect the market more than 3%. And for a little bit of background, what sometimes happens with projects is if there's a coin element to it or a cryptocurrency token, founders will keep some back, sort of like payment for down the road. Think of it like shares in a company. That's the idea. We have a lot of legal questions about those coins, right?
Right.
Are they securities? Are they not securities? We can get into that a little bit later, but there's a lot of issues with that. So this was the nature of the project, and it just never delivered. So behind the scenes, there's a whole litany of stories of each person accusing the other of scamming themselves. So Eddie Ibanez was supposedly the developer, which is the person that writes the code to make the coins.
But wait. Let me actually stop you. I wanted to go at something right away that you said. So it didn't deliver.
No.
People paid for it.
Yes.
Let's just look at their basic legal issues there. If I'm Joe Blow at a store or whatever, and I'm going to sell you something, or I say I'm going to sell you something, and you pay me, but I don't deliver, what's the legality? I mean, isn't that illegal? Isn't that something that could be charged legally? I mean,
right off the bat, to your point, first of all, is it a breach of contract? I paid you something. You said you're going to give me something. Right. You didn't give me the thing. Right. You're going to give me the thing, or you're going to give me my money back. What's happening here? Right? Breach of contract. Depending on how the interaction went down as well, maybe there's fraud elements there, whether civilly or maybe criminally, depending on the amounts of money, the way the fraud went down, and the allegations there. But to your point, right, it's like going to the store, going to Best Buy, wanting to buy a video game. You pay the pre-sale, you're supposed to get the game in a month, you never get the game.
Right.
That's essentially what happened here, just using NFTs.
Like, I go for Breath of the Wild, one of my favorite games. I buy the pre-sale and it's not there. Or Breath of the Wild 2. I hope it comes soon. And it doesn't. And, I've paid them all this money. They have to pay me back.
I mean, typically, right. And in the real practical world, maybe when it's $50, $60, people just kind of, they'll get angry. Maybe they'll get a lawyer to call, but usually they'll kind of let it ride. In this project, there were people in the videos that we've seen multiple people, $50,000, $100,000, $10,000. So these are significant amount of money. And a lot of what they discussed was, to your point, the promises that were made essentially by Logan Paul on his podcast, on Twitter Spaces, which is where a lot of these communications happened. So immediately promised something, didn't deliver the thing.
Right. That's a problem, I would think, just a legal problem. I don't know to what extent, but seems like it's some kind of breach of an agreement contract in a sense.
Well, and even honestly in the space, there is a big debate amongst lawyers because we don't have a lot of settled precedent. The terms of service are likely to control. What do the terms of service say? Are they drafted in a way that are legally, enforceable? So if they're not enforceable, what are the rules that will place it? What are the obligations in this type of project? I think for a court to even analyze it, they have to figure out what it is. And in this case, it was supposed to be a game with a cryptocurrency. Okay. In other cases, maybe it's just art. Maybe it's art with you get a car down the road. I don't know. Like, however you want to do it, each situation will be unique.
So to me, that's one of the problems immediately with crypto. And I know we chat a little bit ahead of time, but there's no rules of the game, right? It's kind of like the Wild West. Like if you're investing in the stock market, which in a sense to me is kind of going to the casino, but if you got money and you're going to invest in something, at least they have some kind of rules, right? The security rules. What is the rule for NFTs and crypto?
It's being decided on a day-to-day basis. So we have, the agency would say they've put out guidance. The SEC would say, we've put out guidance. We've said we're going to enforce when we think there are unregistered securities being sold and violations occurring. Creators in the space and companies in the space would disagree. There's not a lot of guidance. The Howey test is from the 1930s, and if you're familiar with that test, that's just a test of, generally speaking, how to determine if something is a security or not. Under that, there's a litany of things. One is called an investment contract. In that case, it was an orange grove. He was selling land to these people. The company was selling land to the people and saying, hey, once you buy the land, if you let me, harvest the oranges, I'll give you a cut of the orange harvesting. That was found to be a security. Okay. That's sort of the analysis that we are operating under when you look to see whether an NFT project or a cryptocurrency qualifies as a security, but we don't have official guidance on how to do that. So it's all in the abstract at the moment.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how people would put their money into it, but I guess there's whatever. I really...
Well, we have seen successful projects. The Bored Ape Yacht Club is a very successful project. They minted for a couple $100. I remember when they minted, actually, because live grown human beings were making monkey noises on Clubhouse. It was during the pandemic. I remember very viscerally that happening. I didn't mint them, obviously. And they've gone on to be very, very successful, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe a little bit less.
Right.
They've sparked marketing deals. They've acquired VC funding. They are actually building a game called The Other Side. So we have examples of this type of project being essentially a real business. Right. I wouldn't know how to classify it all the way through because it's kind of an open question, but we have seen it before.
I almost feel like it's a misnomer that they're saying it's currency. I understand it's a market, but in a sense, it's like some kind of thing I want, a commodity, because the American greenback is backed by the American government. And so as long as there's an American government, you know that piece of paper, even though paper is worthless, but the guarantee behind the government is what gives it its value. In this case, Logan Paul's guaranteeing that this is going to work, or him and his crew, but obviously it didn't. So it's got to have a different name, I'm thinking, because it's not really currency. There is, I guess, value if Josh or Braulio think that, and I know it was like different animals, monkeys, gorillas,
the NFT, the actual NFTs, yeah.
If you find value in it, you could. I understand. Like I could find value in this cup, right? And say, oh, you're like this cool cup. Whatever. Roberto Clemente drank from this cup. I'll buy, whatever. Like I'll buy that. So I can understand where people say there's value in this, but I don't know. To me, in my head, it's like, well, it's not really currency. It's something else, and you're using the coin as maybe the chit or the chip that says this is worth $10,000 because of whatever, or this picture. In this case, it's what looks like some kind of downloaded picture that I don't know.
Photoshopped. Not photoshopped. It was stock images, right?
Right, stock images. Yeah. It's kind of like well, I'm not going to say, there was a prior release of an NFT of a celebrity, and it seemed that it was stock photos with just a head.
And a lot of the CryptoZoo, they were saying, were just stock photos.
Yeah.
They were just animals with weird faces.
Yeah.
Yeah. You open up a big can of worms. This is kind of the fun part of the conversation. So cryptocurrency, I would suggest, it's not like it was like the official term, right? Bitcoin is really the first one we looked to. I think it's 14 years old at this point,
Right.
2009, 2008 when it was released. So it's been around for a while. The value proposition with that particular coin or currency, whatever you want to call it, is that it's scarce, meaning eventually it's not going to get made anymore. It's built into the program. And it's just a ledger that we know every transaction that happens, so we can track it.
Can you track it? Like,
Yeah.
if anyone could go in and track it?
Publicly available. Okay. We can go on a website. For example, on the Ethereum blockchain, which is where a lot of NFTs live, you can go to what's called Etherscan, and you can track every token. I make visual art as well, and I've gifted NFTs of my art to friends of mine. And I can actually go into like my platform and go through each token on my smart contract.
One day I'm going to get an NFT from you, bro.
Whenever you want it. You heard it's on it's on video.
All right.
Whenever you want it.
You heard it. You guys heard it.
We can even do, I guess we could even do it on air and show people how to actually transfer an NFT. But
Yeah.
I can track each token. I can see what wallet it's in. I can see every transaction that's ever occurred. And there's a little bit of anonymity there because maybe the wallet's a bunch of numbers instead of your name. But it's still public. Anyone can look at it. And a lot of times you can figure out who it is if you just dig deep enough.
Okay. Is there a ledger for who owns the wallets?
So I'll try to parse that. So like, for example, if you have like a Coinbase account, they have community wallets. So Coinbase will take in the money and then they're holding it basically on your behalf, right? So there's big, giant Coinbase wallets. It's kind of hard to figure out who's who in that scenario. If it's a custodial wallet, there's no document of like just every wallet with every person's name that's just on the blockchain, but you can see every transaction. If you know the wallet address, you can search the wallet address, things like that nature. But I got a little sidetracked. I apologize. So that was the value proposition of Bitcoin. It's gone up in value. I don't know what the current value is. $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 was up to 60 at some point. Initially, it was for people that wanted to just use a currency with a little bit of privacy and more easier to trade. The idea is to bank the bankless, right? Anyone can have a wallet if you have internet, if you have computers.
Sure.
Is it a currency? Probably not. Is it readily accepted in many locations? Kind of, yeah. There are countries in South America that have made it legal tender, and you can accept Bitcoin.
Really?
Yes, I believe El Salvador was the first, if I'm not mistaken. There are debates about how that's gone for the country.
Right.
We have examples. Fort Worth, Texas is mining Bitcoin.
Really?
Yes. So we have examples of like governments getting involved in it.
It's not like the little old Russian lady with the farm of old computers, and you see that in the movies.
Maybe somewhere. She's mining away too, but so is the government in Fort Worth, and that's kind of the beauty of it is that anyone can kind of do it with enough resources if possible. Now, obviously, it's become big business, big farms doing it. So it's not accepted everywhere readily yet, but you can maybe call it money of some kind. Maybe not a currency, which is the thing behind the greenback, right? The American dollar. That's the basis of business, essentially, in today's day and age. Maybe it does not to that level, but people do accept it. And there are markets where you can buy an NFT on the blockchain, but you're paying cash. So you're paying through credit card, and then the company is doing the blockchain transaction for you.
Wow.
So there's a lot of ways to break down.
Circling back to Logan Paul and the Zoo coin, let me just start by, you had touched on some of the cast of characters that kind of put this all together. And that's why I always think of these projects as being kind of questionable, because I'm sure he's great at being an influencer and making money doing projects like that. But I don't know that being the CEO or project manager of this kind of complicated issue is his forte. And so he has this manager, Jeff, I guess, according to this is now all Coffeezilla, right?
Right. We're just talking about what we've seen in the video.
What we've seen in the video, and this is, I'm going to call him Coffee from now on. So Coffee says, okay, well, Jeff's his manager. Okay, Jeff, he's kind of caught in the middle. They do no vetting, it seems to me. They hire this Ibanez guy, who seems to be a total fraud. Lied, somehow scammed the Yankees to, tell them that he hacked into AOL, all kinds of crazy stuff. And you think that you'd ask, you'd call AOL and check. I mean, they would tell you, right? If it's a legit request. So they don't vet this guy. This guy seems to be a total scam artist. Who hires, I don't know who hired the guy who fled to Switzerland that I guess held
the
the
developer?
code back, the developer, the dev.
I think it was allegedly Ibanez that had hired him. Yeah.
Who was another guy who had a sketchy background and apparently had run-ins with the law. And then this mysterious, very sketchy dude seems to me the crypto king. Dude doesn't even have a name that he reveals. It's the crypto king.
Something Greenbaum. I don't remember his first. Jeff Greenbaum or something like that. Yeah.
So it's this cast of characters, and would I trust my baby with them? Probably not. So when I'm throwing thousands of dollars, I'm going to look at it the same way. But whatever. So they hire these guys, and I mean, is this the way all NFTs and cryptocurrencies work? It's just whoever does it can do it, and that's that.
So this is what I both love, and it's a little bit of a challenge with cryptocurrency and NFTs generally, is anyone can spin up a project. If you have a developer, you can use a program to help you make code. Anyone can do a project. So it's...
In this case, they just copied code from...
They actually... That was in the video. Yeah, they copied and pasted codes from other projects, which we've seen a lot in this space. So it's actually a debate in this space, like who can you trust? Because there's been a lot of scams, there's been a lot of people losing money, and there's also just been failed projects. So sometimes someone will call something a scam, and realistically they bought a project and no one liked it, and the price fell. So I think that's where the nuance is. We're going to see some of these cases kind of as they come down the road in the years to come. The nuances will come out.
Yeah.
But they copied and pasted the code. So there's a debate. Doxed, meaning we know who you are, like I'm Braulio, I'm starting this project. I'm Josh, I'm starting this project, versus undoxed or anonymous, where they have their NFT profile, some Twitter name, and that's who they are. Again, I hate to keep harkening back to them, but when Bored Ape Yacht Club first launched, they were an anonymous project. We didn't actually know who the people were. They were listed on the website. We assumed they were real. They've since been doxed. They are real individuals. We know who they are. And they've gone on to do pretty big things in the world. We've had examples of completely anonymous projects that stayed anonymous that were also fine for all intents and purposes. So this is typical in a sense. It's typical. Anyone can do it.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Is it typical? Is it legal? One, A, and B, is it typical? And I guess C, is it ethical? You start up this project and you say, and I don't know what the percentage is, I'm going to keep X amount of tokens for myself and my buddies, the crew, the founders. Is that pretty, is it legal? Is it?
It can be done legally. So I guess there's a spectrum of how to the book you want to be, right? We were saying before how we're not sure what regulations are going to apply. So if you are a well-funded project and you want to be on the safe end, you'll go to like a securities attorney or a commodities attorney, and you'll follow the necessary paperwork. And you can keep tokens, like I said, similar to like stock shares, and then sell them at when legally permissible, whatever the specific regulations are that govern that particular filing.
So through stocks, there's a formula, there's a format,
and
process to do this.
Some projects have done this in the NFT space. So
whether did or not, this one do it?
Yeah, these guys kept a lot of tokens.
But did they file any kind of documents?
Not from the video that we've seen. That would be public information. So that's filed with the SEC or the CFTC, whoever it may be, and you would look it up. Yeah. So I don't think so. But again, usually a lot of times, like what I've seen is the tokens have to be locked up for a certain period of time. I think even here they had talked about locking up the tokens and not selling.
Although, at least according to Coffee's investigation here, there was this text or email back and forth where they were like changing the rules on the fly. It seemed. Didn't it seem that way?
The snippets that we saw, they're talking about the markets, they're talking about the percentages, the coins.
He could have misled us. Coffee could have played with how this went, but at least from what Coffee's saying, seems like they may have been on the fly adjusting what the rules were.
Which is part of the problem, right? Because if the project is started by a team with real business acumen and that's how they want to run the project, there's a reason for doing that. And people like it, it's entertaining. They want to participate in that. Sure. Fine, you can do it appropriately, but to your point, it's complicated. Tokenomics, quote unquote, like building a alleged currency or whatever you want to call it, a medium of exchange that people are going to trade and might have dollar values down the road, is a complicated matter. Can it be done? Sure, we've seen it happen, but it's very complicated. And when it implodes spectacularly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I would get into the ethics, but
Well, according to Crypto Kid, what he did was ethically maybe not the best, but not illegal, right? I mean, and that was part of something that's interesting. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, please.
Something that I find fascinating about a lot of these crypto cases where it's a rug or it's this or it's that, even Sam Bankman-Fried with the FTX thing, which is purely cryptocurrency, so we won't go down that rabbit hole, is like the desire or the ability for them to go publicly and actually say some things. You know, a lot of times if you're embroiled in a situation, a lawyer's going to say, hey, don't say anything. Like, let's keep the communications in-house. People are going on Twitter. They're going on Discord. They're trying to defend their names and justify things. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And that also may have an impact on if there's any legal actions down the road, civil or criminal for that matter. It could become evidence.
Yeah. So I'll come back to that, but I wanted to ask about the other part that for me, as someone who doesn't know anything about this, and I would guess that there's a huge crowd out there that doesn't really understand how crypto and NFTs work and the legalities and so forth. But also, is it legal for these developers or these founders to create this pre-quiet sale where they, I guess, just buy up more tokens for themselves?
Well, again, so I think it is going to depend on the situation. I hate to say it like that.
Such a lawyer
answer. I mean, you can do pre-sales, right? If you're selling, you can do, round, however you want to phrase it. If it's Series A or if it's like pre-seed funding or you're doing VCs, like you can sell shares prior to a public offering. But if you're going to do a public offering and you don't tell people, this is where like the regulation that you were talking about would be beneficial. And I think a lot of projects would actually like it. So they know what they have to do and they know what they have to say.
To me, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but it seems like it's almost rigged then. Like I can come in with my friends and we're going to start this project and we're going to buy all this stuff up front because then, at least from what it looked like in the coffee, again, this is what we're seeing from coffee, is that then they start doing this circle of buying and selling with each other, and are they pushing the price up so that when other people come in, they have to buy it more expensive, right?
So we've seen that happen. Those are oftentimes called pump and dumps, where you use artificial methods, whether it's like bots to buy and sell, or you're manually doing it yourself to make it seem like there is interest in the token. Pushes the price up, pushes the market value up. What's called FOMO, or fear of missing out, which is something that's always existed. It's just a newer term. You want to buy, well, I got to hit the ride. Look how high it's going, parabolic. It's going straight up. So we've seen pump and dumps in the past, and it looks like in this case, the founders all had multiple wallets and were buying a bunch, just soaking up all the tokens. Whether it was to manipulate the market or have the tokens in advance before the price skyrocketed to sell, we don't know. But they were talking about the methods of doing it. But I want to go back to something you said earlier as well. Part of the reason why we even know all this information is because of the blockchain. And because Coffee went to the blockchain and he audited the smart contracts, which you said were copied, they were. And we know that these wallets were buying, trading, selling tokens. And then from there, he can kind of pinpoint who's who. So he was able to do this investigation. He was able to determine all this without going to the cops, without hiring a private investigator, just with publicly available information on the blockchain.
Literally pulling the data from what is available on the blockchain.
Exactly.
Which purportedly, from my understanding, can't be changed. Supposedly they can't go back and change.
Right, exactly. So if it's a well-built blockchain, the idea is it's what's called immutable. You can't hack the system to change the prior transactions. Once it's in a block, it's locked there permanently. There are hypothetical ways that people have theorized that it may become possible in the future, but as of right now, it's really unlikely. For example, the major coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, probably not going to happen.
Right. So I know there was this falling out, I guess, between, or it seems between the crypto king and the rest of the founder crew, because he put in purportedly $250,000 and then walked away with $6 million, according to Coffee, right?
Not bad.
Not bad. And it almost seems, just as a perspective for me, I don't know, but it seems like they're mad at him because he beat them to the punch.
It could be. The Coffee had a lot of texts and emails, and we heard Crypto King he was talking to him, and we heard Jeff on the phone, and he had conversations with these people. What's interesting too, we talked about just at the outset. I promise you something, you pay me money, I don't give it to you. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Now we're getting into running a business. So you have a team of developers. There was an oral contract allegedly. So the developer who was supposed to get paid 50 grand a month or whatever it is for 25 developers, $1 million, whatever the numbers really were, no written contract, but work was done. Then they take and they don't deliver the product to the person who's buying it, the team at CryptoZoo. Right. So who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? Immediately there's a breach of contract. They fire one team. They bring in a new dev team. That dev team also doesn't deliver the code and also gets fired and also doesn't get paid. So you have, even internally, all those relationships have potential claims.
It's
maybe less so
mess.
criminal. It's a big mess. It's a lot of legal issues all in one big mess that took place over the course of like really 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
You know, September, launched in December and never worked, and it kind of died.
What is the remedy for someone that lost money now, that paid millions or thousands of dollars and didn't receive a product?
We are seeing actions taken by individuals and class actions, mostly so, you know, you're seeing them like FTX, Celsius, but you can sue project founders. It could be fraud. You know, you can do breach of contract as well. Hey, you didn't deliver the product, you disappeared. And in addition to just fraud, like wire fraud. So that's a very general claim. That's more so on the criminal side of things. But you can make complaints to the government and say, look, we think we were victims of scams. And you can kind of tip off the government and see what they do with it. And then you can try to take them to court for like I said, for various breach of contracts and fraud actions. And I'm sure there are some unique remedies that people may come up with, but we haven't seen one of those cases go all the way yet. So we're still kind of waiting to see how they play out.
So can Logan Paul and his team, I guess, save face now by, and let's just look at the legal part of it as if they can deliver now in 2023, does that kind of like clear them in a sense?
Well, I think it would help if I'm a lawyer and I see, you know, part of the problem is that you never delivered the thing promised and then you deliver it, whether it's good, bad, or the other thing. I mean, hopefully it's at least workable.
At least it's a product.
It's a product that works. Yeah. At a minimum, it works and it's operational. I think it would help. Even a lot of that's probably going based off the sentiment of the victims that we saw or alleged victims that we saw in the video, where they even said, like, we just want either an apology or own up to something, or if the project failed, like, for us to be aware, and we'd love to see the actual product. Because to your point, they could still deliver a game. They could still deliver a NFT project. I mean, normal businesses in the real world, if it's a startup company, if they go from building, you know, leasing the building to putting the product out on the street to 1,000 people within 5 months, that would be hyperspeed. It does go that quickly in the NFT space because there's less to do. It's code and the internet. So we are used to quicker drops, but they could, in theory, launch a new project and maybe mitigate some of the damage. But I think there's all kinds of issues that are potentially there regardless.
At this point.
Yeah.
It just seems, are all these, it's such a complicated thing because it's an NFT, but then I guess there's a coin aspect, a Bitcoin aspect of it. And are all these games, are they, I don't want to say it's pyramid, but it's pyramid-y, it seems, because are they all structured that way? Because you, in this game, and you know, I haven't done it, so I can say firsthand, but from watching the videos, sounds like you buy one animal, you now buy another animal. Somehow, I don't know what happens in the virtual world, they mate and there's this egg. Then it hatches, and then you have something else. And I guess you can sell that something else, or
well, I think
what?
that's
how does that work?
That's what was supposed to happen here, right? And in the video, Coffee did draw the one animal, then the eggs, and he did make a little pyramid type shape out of it. But I think it does kind of depend. Right now, there is no video game. So the difference being is if you are a well-funded company, and there are companies working on this right now.
Let me say, I'm not saying it's pyramid.
No, of course.
Because when I was a kid, I remember Amway and that whole thing, you know, but it just, I don't know, it doesn't totally smell right.
I think it's a complicated problem. I think it's a difficult thing to actually accomplish. If the assets are the digital assets, we'll just call them that, if they're used in a game, and therefore, if I like the game and I like the item and I want to use it for my purposes, then there's a market and I can buy it, right? So it kind of changes in that dynamic. In the abstract of it is, we're going to give you this thing, it's going to print you a second thing, you sell both things and you keep printing. Okay, yeah, maybe that sounds problematic for sure. And we've seen projects that maybe would fall into that category too, but they are not all like that.
And does animal A and animal B, can they continue having eggs?
I don't know. I didn't make the code. We'll never know. Until they drop the game, we'll never know.
I mean, I don't know. It just, I don't know, man.
It's a very so the thing is, the thing I want people to understand is it is basically a new technology. NFTs are a new technology. Blockchain are a new technology. Just like when the internet started being more popularized in the 90s, we felt safe using AOL. That was people's first exposure to using the internet and email and all that kind of stuff. There were a lot of scams. The Nigerian prince scam is a very famous one. There are a bunch of other ones. Like people sent money to these addresses. It's not dissimilar than here getting phished or being hacked or being scammed a little bit. People who want to scam others will probably gravitate towards new technology because it's a gray area. There, maybe lawmakers aren't paying attention to it, or the cops don't know how to prosecute it, whatever it may be. So they exist, but we've seen the technology on the complete opposite end of the spectrum as well. Not just collectibles, not just video games. I've seen artists use it very effectively in the way that they sell artworks. Starbucks recently launched a loyalty program, and they're incorporating NFTs where they're going to have adventures and quizzes that you can win what's called stamps. So it's an extension of their loyalty program. I don't know what Porsche's doing, but at Art Basel they had a pop-up and they gave me a little car and you can mint a Porsche NFT in the near future. So there's very, very legitimate uses of the technology. I think it's a lot of fun, at least for me personally. I think it's fun to see businesses
I love the arts. I think it's
interact
cool,
with their communities in new ways. But there are definitely scam-looking projects out there. And we just saw an arrest for what's called a rug pull a couple of days ago. The feds arrested a similar thing. Hey, we're going to sell you this project. There's going to be events. There's going to be tickets. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. They took $2.5 million. They disappeared.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's fraud.
Yeah. Look, I mean, and at the end of the day, these kind of projects, I would think for the most part, they're, and I get it, I'm a capitalist, they're money-making projects. I mean, that's why they did this. They didn't do this to be, altruistic. I mean, and not just them, anyone who does this. It's about making money and go for it. I think it's great, but you got to deliver a project, the product.
Right. It's how you leverage it. It's your point. If it's a business versus a nonprofit, I mean, there are free projects that people will make and then just put out in the universe.
Do they?
Yeah, and not a lot of them don't do well, but some have value. There is a project called the Nouns Project, which is very fascinating. Every day a new NFT is minted, and there's an auction every single day. They've gone for some pretty crazy numbers.
Really?
Absolutely, and it's what's called a CC0 project or a Creative Commons 0 project. They've retained no copyrights to the art, so you can take this noun or whatever it is and build something around it. And what we've seen is like a very strange ecosystem of tangential, subsidiary, I don't know what you would call them, if they're businesses, if they're projects, if they're just whatever they are, using this art and all being formed around this center project.
Where can I go see any of this stuff?
So because it's the blockchain, there are different websites you can buy, sell, and trade NFTs. So OpenSea is the biggest one for Ethereum. I think they have Solana NFTs as well. And you just type in the project, Bored Ape Yacht Club or CryptoPunks or whatever it is.
If you buy or if I buy an NFT somewhere, can people see what I bought?
Yes. Absolutely.
Like they could see the artwork of whatever it is somewhere.
Which is kind of part of the idea of where you can have credibility as a collector, but also be anonymous. There are collectors in the Twitter world too. That's where all the arts for NFTs, we all communicate through NFT Twitter. They're collectors. I don't know who they are, but we know that they're buying the works because we're seeing wallets that are linked to the actions that they're saying they're taking. Hey, I just bought this artist. I think they're going to be great, and then they go on a move, and it's in their wallet. And we can see that because that's public information.
And if I ever wanted to, I can say, hey, Josh, I've got this artwork. I'll sell it to you.
Absolutely. And we could do it sitting right here. I mean, I can do it through Twitter with someone I never met, I've never known. And we can have a conversation like, hey, Braulio, I love your work. Can I send you a little bit of ETH and you'll send me the token? And we can do it right then and there.
My question is kind of being old school in the sense, I buy artwork. The point is, I love it. But I kind of want to display it too. You want to show the world somewhere in my house or wherever it may be. If I have a lot of money, I have a museum or some kind of place to display it. So can you do that, I guess, with your
Absolutely.
NFTs?
Yeah, it was amazing at Basel this year, actually. So I think it was Scope. They had something called the Monolith. It was like a 20, 30-foot tall screen that would cycle through different NFTs. They have companies that are based around building displays specifically for NFTs. I think Samsung bought something called Mural, which is a digital display. I think it was mostly for photographs. That'll likely be used for NFTs. Other companies as well, specifically just to display them.
All right. So final thoughts on ZooCoin.
I had fun watching the videos. It was entertaining. Coffee, I thought, did a very thorough job. Obviously, you got to take it with a grain of salt, right? And take it for what it is at face value. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if there are any actual claims or anything that's going to go down. It's all a lot of mudslinging right now, but it is an interesting case for people to kind of pay attention to, because it's when a project goes wrong, right? Like regardless of someone getting sued or a criminal action being brought, the project went wrong. Product wasn't delivered. People weren't paid. Tokens were sold in violation of agreements. Each one of those items is a large legal issue in and of themselves. And then you layer on top of it the fact that we don't have barely any case law relating to these types of assets, and no law is specifically designed for the assets. I mean, I think the laws can apply to them now, but we still don't have that direct guidance.
Why don't we have that?
It's a great question. There are bills that have been tried to be passed. The one that comes to mind for me personally is Gillibrand, who is a Democrat, and Loomis, who's a Republican, put together a crypto bill.
Who killed it?
It just hasn't gone anywhere. Okay. I don't think it's even dead. I think it just hasn't really gone anywhere. It doesn't seem to be a priority. There's a lot of things going on right now. Not a lot of people know about this stuff, and they think it's mostly a scam. It hasn't hit that mainstream yet. So I guess the legislators don't have a reason, a necessity to do it at the moment, but the industry is begging for it because money's still getting invested. People are finding trademarks every day. I mean, restaurants, cosmetic brands. Nike is launching a whole universe to trade digital shoes.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. They had bought out a separate NFT project that made digital clothing and real clothing. So now there's this exchange of the digital versus the physical. Like, it's going to be used for many, 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 many things. And within that, there's going to be many complicated legal issues. We haven't even gotten into what's the actual token. When I buy your token, what am I buying? Am I buying the art? Am I buying a license to the art? What if I tell you it's something different? What if it's redeemable for something else? Is it the same thing in each situation from a legal perspective?
I would think you're buying the art. I guess not.
It's going to depend. And we've seen different versions of that in the real world. So like, for example, Damien Hirst is a very famous artist. He released an NFT project early last year called The Currency. They basically did scans of 10,000 works that he made, these dot paintings. If you bought the NFT, you had a year to decide, do you want to keep the NFT or do you want to burn it, send it to, you can't have access to it anymore for the physical, but you don't get both. So I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole and answer the question here, but I've heard lawyers disagree and argue about what is that token. Is it a ticket that you can redeem for a work of art, or is it the actual work of art itself? And that's separate from the philosophical questions it raises too.
Maybe that's for another day.
How about
final thoughts? Your recommendations to people out there that are potentially interested in the future of buying NFTs online, like projects,
Sure.
like this.
So I would say definitely do research. It's not as onerous or complicated as it could be. We use the internet every day, but we don't know the wirings or the plumbing of the internet. We don't know how it works. So with this, learn a basic understanding of what is a blockchain, what is crypto, what's a token. From there, you can start exploring like pages like OpenSea or just poking around on Twitter, seeing what people are into in the NFT space, and then do a little bit of research. If you're into video games and you want to buy Game One, then do research into those. See what has a vibrant community. Do they have a Discord where people are talking every day? Are there consistent sales? Is the team communicating with people? Or is it kind of a dead project? Do you just want to buy art? I know I just raised that big question, but do you want to just buy images from artists, right? Do you want to buy loyalty point things? Like if I buy a dot swoosh, I get to participate in the Nike universe. Is that what you want to do? So it's going to come down to you as an individual and just what you want to do. And then also have a little bit of fun. Don't spend too much money, right? Spend within your means. What's money you're willing to lose? Because it is a new technology. What if the project has great intentions and the whole thing goes bust anyway? So you want to do it to a level that you're comfortable with.
What's a good website, or where's a good place to just kind of learn more about this stuff?
So NFT Now I think is a good place. They do a podcast and they do a publication as well. There's this guy on Twitter, Jason Bailey's his real name, but he's known as Art Gnome. And he's been writing about crypto art for going on 4 years now, 2018, 2017, 2019.
Okay.
And I usually point people to that because in my personal opinion, it's really much easier to learn when you focus on the art, because that was sort of the first community to latch onto the technology that wasn't purely economics and purely making money. It was about artists trading art. So he goes through a very thorough analysis and explains like the basics of that movement, what blockchain is, what a token is, and how it was used in the art world. And then you can sort of apply it to like other items like cups or cars or real estate is going to be very big in the near future.
So everyone, if you want to ask questions or learn anything about NFTs, Bitcoin, so forth, Josh is your guy. You want to give them your email, website, so that they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. So you can reach us at twiglaw.com. That's twig like a little tree. .com. My email is josh@twiglaw.com. I love talking about this stuff, and I'm happy to answer questions or help people get a better idea of what this is, because at the end of the day, we as lawyers need to be at the forefront and not catching up. And it's going to impact a lot of our practices going forward.
Thanks, my friend. I hope you can come back, and as we get more information from what's going on with this project or others that are interesting, we'll talk some more about this, because I think it's ever evolving.
I'd love to, and I'll give you an NFT next time.
Perfect. And thank you, everyone, and have a good day.